Today's Nonsense Wars production features my 1:48 scale Ace 3000, a proposed steam locomotive that never got built. From the more traditional PRR-T1 to the more radical Bullion Leader, I've always liked advanced steam concepts for their blend of old and new. In 1980, American Coal Enterprises, a company formed specifically for this purpose, set out to design a steam engine with efficiency and convenience on par with diesels, but sadly, nothing ever came of this venture. I actually built the Ace way back in 2013, making it one of, if not the oldest model on the channel. Along with the Wardale 5AT, perhaps more on that in the future, the Ace actually got me back into LEGO trains after college. I made it red to match the one piece of concept art, but red eventually became the unofficial color of the fictional Nonsense Wars Railway. In this original universe, the NW probably hauls coal in the east, judging by this engine and its other rolling stock. Due to my unfamiliarity with Power Functions equipment at the time, I initially designed the Ace for 9-volt operation, intending to push it with a discrete power car. The original version of the locomotive had no motors. I eventually did add some, but in the tender rather than in the engine. I felt it easier to drive the bogies, and I could get away with using 2 PFXL motors, making the current Ace one of, if not the strongest engine in my fleet as well. To accommodate the poor low-speed torque of 9-volt train motors, I optimized the Ace for low rolling resistance, giving it a 2.2.1 axle configuration. This kind of highly articulated chassis doesn't really get built anymore in the current era of powered engines, especially with wide radius curves becoming more and more common. Like the T1, the Ace had 2 sets of pistons and 2 sets of connecting rods, but the connected second and third driving axles limited wheel slip and gave the locomotive a fairly conventional 4-8-2 wheel arrangement. The split cranks on each side ran 180 degrees apart in order to balance each other and limit wear on the track. To accomplish the same in the model, I used a mechanism designed by the once prolific LEGO train modeler Ben Benecke. A set of bevel gears between the second and third driving axles keep the two halves synced while still allowing them to pivot. Even at this scale, you can actually feel the difference in vibration between the split and phased configuration and a traditional configuration when moving the engine back and forth quickly. These gears do need resynchronizing once in a while, but usually only after handling the locomotive off the track. In fact, I liked this mechanism enough to use it again in a slightly different way on a second model, my long-gone DRG T18 steam turbine engine, which unfortunately will probably never feature on the channel. I double hinged some of the joints between the articulated sections, and I pinned the ones going into the body in order to give the chassis enough flex to navigate rough track without derailing. I set up the pivots in order to align the back of the locomotive with the front of the tender in turns. As with the QJ, the location of these pivots require an expansion joint. In this case, I put it between the second and third axles. Even though it came several years later, the actual drivetrain in the tender still follows a bit of an older paradigm, with one motor driving each bogie. Still, the huge amount of torque available in this setup allowed me to have my cake and eat it too. Even with a net gear ratio of 25:9, twice that of the Alco PA, the engine still has excellent low-speed torque as well as a relatively high top speed. The bogies themselves have some tricks as well. The middle axles slide in order to navigate R40 curves, and like in the T1 tender, the drivetrain has to route around said axles. This particular implementation only works with a full-width body. The reinforcing structure on top would not fit in a 4 or even 6 wide space. The second 5-3 gear stage also lives down here. Some features of this model use old parts that LEGO had already stopped making in 2013. I think the 1LU headlight clips in the noses are the worst offenders. In the past, I liked to leverage the unique properties of these old parts, but later I tried to avoid doing this, especially when I started making instructions. The instructions for the ACE, which I will make available on Rebrickable, has most of these old parts replaced. Outside of the shenanigans in the cabs and the sideways grills on the tender, I built the rest of the body's studs up with mostly basic bricks. Both can come off their respective chassis easily enough in order to inspect the drivetrains or change the batteries. The roofs also come off, so I can see the alignment of the bodies when reinstalling them. I still consider the Ace one of my favorite models due to the prototype's unique appearance and unfulfilled potential. To be fair, I doubt it would have taken off even if they built it, but I can always dream. Unfortunately, I don't run the Ace much due to its massive size and relative fragility, but it does run well once on the track. Again, I do have instructions for sale linked in the description, but this is the end of the video, so have a nice day.
We don't really have a lot of funding towards that. Our school, it's a little sad, but we're called the sports school. They fund their sports, because our football team was like...
It's a crappy middle school, but as crappy middle schools go, it's not bad. Like, if you go to, like, I don't know,
See, it didn't work. Wait.